Our reading from the gospel today raises a question about the idea of a line. And I don't know if you've seen the cartoons I've seen about the line of people waiting to get into the pearly gates. It really makes the idea of the afterlife seem very bureaucratic in my book. You'd think there'd be more than one entrance. Maybe 12, if one follows the book of Revelations. I don't know. But it raises a question that's a little bit disturbing. Not just if you look at the cover of the bulletin and realize that they're actually all socially distancing, which, if you didn't realize it, it clearly is a COVID picture. But the idea of who's in line ahead of you. The Lord is presented with a trap by the leaders of Israel. He's presented with a trap because they're asking him a question. By whose authority are you doing this? Now, when we sit and just look at it, we might think it's a simple inquiry. Whose authority are you doing this by? Simple. Doesn't seem like a difficult question. If you understand the laws of the day and the time, the priests, the elders, they were trying to get Jesus to commit a crime. They were trying to trap him into saying, well, God told me to do it, and in doing that, he would actually be able to be arrested. Because he did not have the credentialing to be able to say that. See, most of the gospel is this weird fight between the established leaders of the day and Jesus and his followers, trying to determine whether or not we should care more about this physical world or about the spiritual or heavenly world. So we get put in this situation where the religious leaders are trying to get Jesus to answer a question so they can crucify him. It eventually happens. His response was simply to turn the question back on themselves, and rather than the power of the state, the power of the people. Make them too scared to answer that very same question about someone the people dearly love. And he's able to kind of say, I'm not going to answer that question quite yet. I'll get to it later in my ministry. He's able to say, I'm not going to answer it because you're not being genuine and open and honest with me. That's really what he's saying. The people of Israel had left a situation of slavery where the Pharaoh had been able to take possession of their bodies. Does that make sense? When you enter slavery, the issue that arises is your bodies become property of your owners. By Jewish law and Jewish custom, the covenant says that God is the owner of your body. So you get pulled into this worldly versus spiritual relationship of who is the owner. And from these two things, we get a whole ton of hypocrisy. When Jesus asks the second follow-up question, the religious leaders are willing to answer it honestly. What that proves is that those people knew what was right. They were aware, they had an understanding of the right answer, but they refused to say it because they didn't want to take the risk of being honest about what they knew, because they believed in the power of the state more than the power of God. One, by the way, just a fun little aside, it's interesting that Jesus picks on the tax collector and the prostitute. I think it's a fun little thing. we need to quickly understand when we see the word tax collector in this passage, it's not like an IRS agent in the United States, right? Tax collectors in biblical times were close to thugs. They tended to overcharge. They actually got paid out of the taxes they collected. They tended to do a horrible job, but the tax they were collecting was the rent on your body from Caesar. It wasn't income tax. It wasn't the same tax system that we have in this day and age. This is the reason why originally in the United States, when they set up our taxation system, they didn't actually want labor to be taxed, because they felt that meant that somehow the state was having authority over the person's body and soul, and they didn't want that. You see, it's this classic biblical argument between who is responsible for you and who are you responsible for? Is it to God or is it to the world? So I'm going to answer a very simple question. Who is in line in front of you? In two parts. If you love the things of this world and you decide that the joys and pleasures of this world are all that you care about, my answer to you is that nobody is in front of you in the line. Now this is a little bit different. I'm doing a play. You see, if you're not caring about the people you see in front of you, then you're standing at the end of a line that goes nowhere. If, on the other hand, you are willing to take stock, ask yourself the question about what does it mean to love and care for people, you get a different line. You get a line of a lot of other people who you can see and who you can care about. The question, I guess, when I look at this Bible verse, I ask myself, is the line moving? I would argue that for the people Jesus is encountering who are trying to stop him, they are in the front of the line, but there's nothing there. Or they're at the back of the line and the line's not moving because they have no consideration for the other people in their world and their society. They have become hypocrites that care more about themselves. This question of line comes up over and over again. Where do you want to be in line? If all you want to do is be at the front of the line, you can be, and this is where I'm playing it here, I'm flipping the reading around. You can be like people who don't care about others, and you can fight for who's at the head of the line. Or you can stand at the back and be willing to care about those who are in front of you. Swedenborg talks in his reading today about opposition may either deaden or intensify our perceptions. I don't know how many of people got it, but he's talking about hypocrisy here. The people of Israel were complaining that having control of their own fate was bad because they liked the worldly comforts of slavery. They were confusing the question of whether or not they were giving themselves to God, and what that did was make slavery okay. The elders, the Pharisees, all of those people, they were asking themselves the question of what's more important, do I get my worldly riches or do I do what God wants? They confused them, and so the opposition did. It's really not a big deal to disagree with that stuff. You don't need to care. You get confused, and it becomes easier and easier and easier to justify doing wrong when you mingle them. Versus, when you don't mingle them, you get hard lines. Some things are right, and some things are wrong. When you stand in line and you look forward, what are your thoughts that you are having? Most people I know stand there and start to get anxious and upset because they're not at the front of the line, right? I did this all the time. I used to get really upset because I'd be standing at the back of the line and I would be looking at who was in front of me, and man, when somebody cut in line, boy, anyone ever have that happen? I would become angry. The front of the line was what was important to me. You know what wasn't actually important to me? The people in front of me. I didn't actually care about the people in front of me. I cared about what I wanted at the end of the line. The whole concept of a line is about caring about the end of it and not the people in between you and there. So we could look at this concept of a line of saying, boy, I'm waiting my turn. When I get my turn, boy, I'm going to get what I want. And you can take this notion of waiting in line to heaven, or I'm going to give you a secret. You can just choose to be in heaven where you are in the line. You can choose to be in heaven by caring about the people in front of you. I came up with this great policy at one point, which was not caring about lines. I would wait till the end intentionally. If somebody wanted to get in, I would invite them in front rather than saying, boy, I need to get to the head. Now, certainly I fall victim to this at some point because there are clocks in the world and there are things. But most of the time, my attitude is I don't wait in line. I stand at the back of the line. I peacefully wait my turn. I don't get upset. I don't get angry, because what I'm doing there is I'm devaluing all of the other people when I care about the end. Rather than valuing the people who are in front of me. So here's a simple, fun question. Do you want to go to heaven, or do you want to be good? Very simple question. Certainly most people would say, I want to go to heaven. But if you want to go to heaven versus wanting to be good, you're in greater difficulty. The issue that we see here are a bunch of people who want to be at their destination. They want to be the ones who are in the Holy Land. They want to be the ones who have done what God commanded, but they don't necessarily care about what they're doing at the moment. To have the people who are viewed as the lowest in the world in the line in front of you is an opportunity to love the outcast. It is an opportunity to care and love for those people. But when you become enraged because you believe you are better than them and you should be at the front of the line, you are standing at the front of the line with nobody in front of you, going nowhere. When you stand at the back and you see compassion and love for the least of your society, when you say it's okay that I'm here because I can be with them, then you have truly let the Lord into your heart and into your life. So this week, I'm pretty sure you're going to be confronted with a line. Maybe it's a line of traffic. Maybe it's a line at the DMV, restaurant. Heck, maybe even after church today, if you come up to lunch, you'll be confronted with a line. What does it mean to love those in front of you versus achieve the goal of the destination? As long as we care about what the reward is, we are not caring about actually being good. Amen.